Financial planning is an industry that relies on effective teamwork to provide the best service to clients. As a manager, it's important you're able to get the best out of your team and retain top talent, constantly trying to stay a step ahead and overcome bumps in the road before they appear. In this episode, we'll be chatting with Helen Clague, Operations Director of Riverside Financial Consultants, based in the heart of the City of London. Talk FS is a podcast where key individuals from the financial services industry share their career insights and lessons they have learned firsthand. What I admire about Helen is her passion for her team, building a high performance culture while still being hugely personable and creating a team culture where everyone supports and looks out for each other. This will be a great listen for any current or aspiring managers, but also to team members who can see what life is like to walk in the shoes of a manager. Helen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Ryan. Glad to be here.
Fantastic. So, as mentioned, today our topic focuses on how to get the best out of your team. So, Helen, you've been a manager for some years now. What's your take on this?
I think, first of all, Ryan, it comes down to how you build the team in the first place. And that really goes right back to you and, for example, your team. When you've got a vacancy, you obviously need to fill it because your business is growing or because you've lost somebody. But who you bring in is incredibly important. And you know what it's like. You get piles and piles and piles of CVs. Now, we tend to work with a very small number of recruitment companies. And the reason we do that is because over the years, they have come to understand our business and, more importantly, our team. Because you're not recruiting a CV. Anybody can sit down, look at a job that's advertised, and they can craft a fantastic CV that matches that so that they get in the door to interview. And if they're really smart, they might even be able to get through the interview. But that's really only the very, very start of the process. There's a very important and intangible piece, which is about fit and getting the right person into the team that will gel with your existing people.
Yeah, definitely, because your team won't appreciate you and thank you for bringing someone in who doesn't fit what you've worked so hard to build.
Definitely not. And I'm sure we're not the only company that's recruited somebody and then thought in their probationary period, crikey, this is not working. And that could be for a number of different reasons. It might be that they've sort of over-egged what their abilities are. But, how do you actually get to the bottom of that in an interview? And the honest truth is you can't. But what we look for is fit in terms of ability. And we do some profiling as part of our interview process. We do numerical reasoning, verbal reasoning, but we also use a method called Belbin profiling. And we often find that for certain roles, there tends to be a quite particular shape that we would look for. But one of the features within Belbin profiling is teamwork.
Yeah.
And I've interviewed people where they've had a 0 or a very low team working score, and that's immediately a red flag for us. It might not necessarily be for every industry, but as you say, financial planning is very intricate and it's a really long process. And one person doesn't do each task in the process of bringing that through to fruition. So it's very important that the team work closely together and work very effectively to make sure that everything is streamlined and that it does get where it needs to be at the right time throughout the process. So if you don't get along with somebody, there's always going to be some friction along the way.
Yeah, definitely. And so, using that personality, test, you're enabled to sort of see behind the scenes that, like you're saying, people may over-egg during interview questions. But also, I remember in terms of your process, you make sure that the team are involved with that selection, aren't they?
I do. Belbin is not so much about personality. It's about it's about how they draw. Are they somebody that likes to investigate things? Are they somebody that really likes to get stuck in teamwork? Are they a natural leader? It's more about their characteristics than their personality. But definitely, I think it's really important to involve your team in the interview process. Now, they don't get the final say, but I do involve them, and I like to involve the person that's closest to the role that we're recruiting for to join me in the selection process. So where we have some good CVs, I will share those with them. Obviously, the guys know that they are confidential, and that very often those CVs are for people who are currently employed elsewhere. So, they have to keep those names absolutely confidential. But we will work through the strongest CVs and we will decide who we want to interview. And then very often it's the first time these people have actually done any interviewing. So I sit down with them and we work out an interview strategy. What sort of questions would they like to ask? What would they like to know about the individual? And I actually get them to do the part of the interview surrounding the role, because after all, they're closer to it than I am. And it's useful because they often come up with questions that I wouldn't come up with. But I think the most important part is they've got a flavour of that individual. And they may say at the end, yeah, I really like that person. I think they'd fit in really well. Or they may say, oh, no, not too sure about that. Not sure how sociable they would be. Because the thing about Riverside is a lot of our people have been with us a long time. We've built, as you've mentioned, a really strong team. But we have very much got a work hard, play hard culture. And a lot of our guys are friendly outside of work. So we really want somebody that's going to come in and go beyond the teamwork thing. We want people to support each other inside and outside of work if they can,
Yeah, that's fantastic. And have you had any feedback from your team members when you've allowed them to be part of the interview panel and process?
Yeah, I actually view it as being part of their own development, to be honest. They really
Yeah.
like that input. They like having that input. And I think they ought to have that input. And I think any manager who decides to interview on their own, they're taking a burden onto their own shoulders. And it's not just the burden of filling the role. Is the person capable of filling the role? You can teach most people most things if they have a certain bandwidth. So you can teach people how to use a computer system. You can teach somebody how to perform a task, whatever the manual elements are. You cannot teach fit. You just cannot teach fit. You can't change somebody's personality. And so it's really important for our team to get a little window into the character of the person that we're looking for to join them. And sometimes it's really difficult. You may have two candidates that are really strong, but in different ways. And it might come down to that knife edge thing. And I will always go with fit when it comes to that, because if you get the right person, you build a fantastic team. You build people that are really strong together. I always think of my team as being precious metals. Each one of them is precious and has a specific use for a specific thing. But where they come together as an alloy, they are stronger than an individual. And what I want is another precious metal to come into the team and strengthen the alloy even more. But it's development for the person that's interviewing as well, because very often they've never done an interview before. And when you ask them to think about the questions that they might like to ask, you can see them sort of thinking, panicked for a moment, thinking, well, what am I going to ask? What am I going to ask? And I say, well,
Yeah.
what do you want to know about them? So I use it as a development piece for them as well.
That's really nice. That's really nice. And do you ever allow your team member and the candidate to have a little bit of time, just the two of them at all, where you like step out the room?
I've never done that, but I wouldn't be against it, to be honest, because I trust my team.
Yeah.
That's a really big thing. I trust them. We've chosen good people and they're good at what they do. So why would I not trust them to be
Yeah.
involved in the interview?
Well, I've done that before when recruiting for my own team, and it is interesting because sometimes the candidate lets their guard down, and they might then have a bit of an interaction that, because you as the hiring manager and operations director stepped out the room, they might sort of go, oh, what is it really like to work here? And then obviously, as because you've got that trust, that they're gonna have the right intentions. But it's interesting to the candidate may let their guard down, and so maybe try it next time. It's an interesting
I
exercise.
really like that idea. I will, because we're going to be doing some recruitment again shortly. So I will try that, because you're absolutely right. Particularly, I think if it's for a more junior role, it's quite nerve-wracking for the
Yeah.
candidate. And I think that's the thing that I would say to anybody that's interviewing for the first time. I wouldn't throw them in on their own ever to interview alone, but they're nervous too. They are nervous too, but they've got to come across as not being nervous because they're doing the interview. And at the end of the day, I think even if you don't offer somebody a job, if you give them a good interview, it boosts their confidence so that they can hopefully find the right thing. If that's not with you, then with somebody else. You've given them something to work with. They've got an idea of what to expect at an interview, and they've built their confidence by having a good opportunity to get an understanding of the sort of thing that they're going to be asked.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what I love about your approach to managing your team, Helen, is you're always thinking, one step ahead about how can I develop this individual. You know, no one it's rare someone will come up to you and in your team and go, I would love more experience on how to interview candidates. It's a rare thing, isn't it? But you're doing that for them and saying, I think over your long-term career, it would be beneficial. And I remember you when we were talking previously, you had this quote, didn't you? That you saw from Jimmy Carr. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, it was a quote. He referenced it in a podcast that he did. It wasn't actually his quote, but it was, "Do something today that your future self will thank you for." I mean, I think you can apply that to everything. I think it's really pertinent actually for financial planning. Start your financial planning young, and then you're going to have a great retirement. But
Yeah.
I also think you can apply it to something every day. And if you bring a good person into your business and you see they've got potential, and that's what I look for when I'm recruiting, it's not just, can you do this job that I need you to do now? I don't want to have that person for 2 years and then them leave and go somewhere else because we can't give them the opportunity. So I try and build in development. What we do is, once we get somebody through their probation and they've been there probably around about the 9 to 12 months mark, we will sit down and then talk to them and say, okay, where do you see yourself? Which route would you like to go? They have to have enough time in the business to understand what the different roles do. Now, when somebody joins us, we give them a really comprehensive training program that will tell them how to do their job. And they're not signed off on anything unless they're completely comfortable. But different people within the business are involved in delivering that training to them. So they have the chance to ask that person about, what role do you do? How did you get there? What made you decide you wanted to do that? And I'm sure you see it a lot with dealing with financial services firms. Everybody comes into a financial advisory business and they think they want to be an advisor.
Yeah.
And it's not the right road for everybody. It isn't. For some people, it's fantastic. They fall into it very, very naturally. Some people want to take a different route. And I think something that's it's very much missed because people don't think it's glamorous, but paraplanning is the most fantastic career for anybody. If you get a really good paraplanner, they are the backbone of a financial planning business. And they have such amazing technical knowledge. And you'll often see that paraplanners, will paraplan for 3, 4, 5 years, and then they may well want to move into advice, but that they've got the most solid of foundations when they do that. We're fortunate to have very good paraplanners, and our advisors will often come and chat to the paraplanners about, what do you think would be the best way of doing this, and what do you think about that? It's a fantastic career opportunity for people, and it's one that I would say for anybody who is thinking in the longer term about being an advisor, try and get some exposure to paraplanning in your career. I think it is a really good grounding.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think that's a fantastic, aspect that needs to have more recognition because, like you say, we have so many candidates who, when they're in that interview situation, you say, "What's your 5-year plan?" "I want to be an advisor." And I feel like sometimes it gets said because that's the done thing to say, but actually, when you drill down, it's like, "Do you want to?" I'm really not sure. So it's nice that you've got that development plan within your business to enable people to try it, see if it works or not, and then actually go, do you know what? I don't like it. I like what I do well. Because something that's occurred to me recently is, you're trying to think of what's a good analogy for, how a power planner works. And I guess a loose way of describing it would be, they're the mechanic behind, the car sales showroom, and they know the nuts and bolts of that car better than anybody.
Absolutely.
A car salesperson needs to be, able to build rapport when people walk through the showroom. But actually, if you know that car inside out, you're always going to be able to go on and become a good salesperson, selling those cars because you've Anybody walking in that showroom is able to ask you a question that you know the answer to. Now, having that like experience in the workshop, like you're saying, can be invaluable if you go on to be an advisor. But equally, there's you need really good mechanics, you need really good salespeople. There's a place for everyone.
There absolutely is. And one of our advisors has this saying, ATD. Come on, ATD, guys. And that's attention to detail. And there's not a job within operations that he can't do. So when we've had a junior come in, perhaps they've made a bit of a mess or something, come on, shoves them over, sits down at the desk and says, right, look, this is how you do it. And I love that. And that's very much what we're all about. So even within our operations team, we try to give them exposure to some of the lower level paraplanning duties. So, for example, if somebody is doing a fund switch or making a top up or making a withdrawal, those go through paraplanning, the way I've structured our business. But our paraplanners have spent some time with our administrators teaching them, what do you have to consider when somebody is doing this? So, for example, we're part of the Open Work Partnership, and Open Work have certain requirements in place to make sure that we have the best possible chance of getting the best outcome for a client. So, for example, if somebody is accessing more than 10% of their pension, we are required to produce a Voyant report for them. So we can start to build the knowledge within our operations team by showing them how to use Voyant. And that's very much about adding value as well. With Consumer Duty, obviously a massive new piece of legislation, we've got to demonstrate that we're adding value to what we're doing for clients. But we do try and involve them in the paraplanning as early as we possibly can, because we also let them sit in with advisors and let them sit in, if an advisor is doing a review by Teams or Zoom, we let them sit in and listen, because it gives them an idea of what an advisor does. And if they work with the paraplanning team, they get an idea of what they do. And sometimes they're just too young to put them into an advisory role. But if they get a flavour of the paraplanning and they come through that route, then they've got a really solid background by the time they may move into advice.
Yeah, definitely. That's fantastic. And then in terms of that aspect of, building that team culture, I know you do weekly meetings with your team as well, don't you?
We do. We have a Monday morning meeting, which is all about, what did we achieve last week? Do we have anything hanging over that we need to knock on the head? But also, what are our plans for the week? What have we got coming up so that I can move resource around if needs be? If we've got a really big task that needs to be done and we know that we're really busy, because most of our people have been there a long time and they've sort of come up through the different roles. We're very lucky we've got the experience in-house that most people can roll up their sleeves and get stuck in and help with something. They may have left that job behind 3, 4, 5 years ago, but they know how to do it. So I think the fact that a lot of my team are friends outside of work as well, they're really keen to not only help a colleague, but help a friend if they're really busy.
Yeah.
And that's where our team are built really, really tight, and we've got somebody with us that's been with us for 10 years. They came in as an apprentice and, they've been with us for 10 years and now they're advising. And that's really what Riverside is about. We try and build long-term relationships with our team as well as our clients, because if we've got the right team looking after our clients, we shouldn't be losing any, we look after them well.
Yeah, fantastic. And I guess from your aspect as a manager, that meeting really enables you to have your finger on the pulse as to what's happening in the business.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in touch with the guys all day, every day. I know what they've got going on, but we're all mindful of deadlines. So whether it's cut-off date for processing by open work, we want to make sure that we can take some pressure off our paraplanners so that the business submissions can be done. So we're a small business and we're always busy. So we're always juggling to make sure that we've got the resource in the right place. And it's something I always say to my team is make sure you know what you've got to do, make sure you have a to-do list, but you have to be flexible and you have to reprioritize that throughout the day, because something important might come up and what you thought was important at 9 o'clock is suddenly not important at 10. Something else has taken priority. So you've got to be flexible and you've got to be adaptable.
Yeah, most definitely. Fantastic. And in terms of, that team bond that you've created, how do you feel that improves the client service and the outcome as a client from that team bond?
We're a very client-centric business, and I would say, in all honesty, that our clients are the most important thing to us, and obviously our team. But we are a very client-centric business, and our team all understand the importance of those clients to our business. They've certainly all had lots and lots to do with Consumer Duty and all the changes that that's brought in. But each and every one of them would agree that although that is a huge piece of legislation, and yes, it has undoubtedly created quite a lot of extra work for us and for every other advisor out there, they all do agree that it's what they would want if it was their parents being advised or one of their family members. They all agree, yeah, this is the service and the outcome that I would want for my family. So they're right behind it. We want to make sure that we are delivering the very best level of service that we can to our clients, because quite apart from anything else, if we do a good job, we get a lot of our business by referral, whether
Hmm.
it's to another family member or to a friend. And if we can grow our business through keeping our clients happy, that creates career opportunities for our team as well. And we would never bring somebody into the team from the outside if we could promote from within. That's one of our main premises with our team.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. And wanting to use this as an opportunity to sort of learn from your experience being a manager, what are some of the challenges you faced over your career when managing a team?
Oh, where do I start? If you've got staff, you've always got challenges, right?
Yeah.
Um, I know when people come to work, they're supposed to leave their personal lives at the front door of the office, right? But it doesn't always work like that. We all know that we can go through some tough times in our personal life. And I think, given the nature of the team that we've built and that they are friendly outside of work as well as inside, um, if there is something tough going on for them, you want to be there for them. And you've got to get that balance right, because you've still got work to do. But if you have a good, strong team, they will support their colleague emotionally outside of the office. And I've seen a couple of instances in our office where we know that somebody's really struggling. We know they've got some tough stuff going on. And the whole team has arms around them, supporting them. What can you give me? I'll take that. I'll do that for you. I'll do that. And that's one of the things I really love about Riverside, that people do really care about each other. Um, and although we're a small business and we don't always agree on everything, make no mistake, we have differences of opinion. Somebody wants to do it one way, somebody wants to do it another. We have to get around the table and thrash that out and work out what's the best way forward. Um, and sometimes, you'll get somebody who is just resistant to change, but we have no choice. The dinosaurs died out because they didn't evolve. Um, but our business, I think every business is changing constantly, and you have to embrace that. And it might be really frustrating when everybody is familiar and comfortable and everything's working well with your existing processes. But financial services, perhaps more than any other industry, there's constant change, there's constantly new legislation, and we have to adapt. Our systems have to adapt, our people have to adapt. And we may as well do that with good grace instead of moaning about it, because that's just energy wasted.
Yeah.
Got to throw that energy into taking us forward.
Yeah, definitely. And with that approach that you've created where, everyone does support each other, I guess that must make your life as a manager um not easier, but when you've got holiday coming up and you're going to be out of the business for a week or 2 weeks, it can be a daunting place when you've got a business where everyone's just going to, that's not my job, someone else will do it. But where you've created a team where everyone gets stuck in, it must make going on holiday an enjoyable experience because things will be dealt with.
Yeah, I'm not anxious. I'm not anxious. I always do keep an eye on emails. I can't stop myself. But do I work on holiday? No, I would pick up anything urgent. Of course I would. But this is the big thing. I trust my team.
Mm.
I trust them. And if you haven't got a team you can trust, you've got the wrong people working for you. So, we always make sure when somebody is on holiday that their emails are forwarded on to somebody else so nothing gets missed. And we do our best to keep on top of their workload as well as whatever else is going on. But I know that I can nominate certain people to look after certain things while I'm away. I also know that I can say to them, look, if something happens, you can ring me and they will call me.
Yeah, it's funny. I prepare a bit of a document sometimes when I've gone away on holiday before, and it's called "How to Do Stuff Ryan Does," and sometimes there's a bit of a manual that some of the bits I do with no one else's involvement really. I leave that little checklist of how to do it, but otherwise everyone's kind of aware. And it's nice that then they can just pick those things up. And like you say, in today's day and age, you're never totally off grid, are you? So a little text or a little call just to sort of say, am I on track? Can go a long way for them as well. The fact you're willing to do that, because it can be daunting.
A lot of the stuff I do is not stuff that the rest of the team are involved with. So I always make sure that that is done before I go. Or if it was something like payroll that fell, I would take my laptop with me and I would deal with it. I would never. Or if, for example, something is going to be a day late, like when I was on holiday earlier in the month, I messaged them all beforehand and said, guys, your pension contributions are going to be a day late this month because I'm on annual leave. I'll do them as soon as I get back on the Saturday, but you'll see them hitting a day late. And they were all fine. They were like, oh, not a problem. Thanks for letting us know. It's communication, Ryan. That's it sounds a bit cheesy and everybody says, oh, yeah, it's all about communication. It really is all about communication. And you've got to encourage people to speak freely. I think one of the best things about having somebody new in a business is that they look at things with fresh eyes. And I always say to them, look, if we're showing you how to do this and you think, why do they do that? Or why do they do it that way? I always say, for heaven's sake, holler and say, why do you do it that way? I think we can do it this way. Now, sometimes there's a reason why we can't do it that way. It could be a compliance piece that they're perhaps not aware of. But somebody new coming into your business is a golden opportunity to review your processes, because, you're not going to recruit somebody that you don't have faith in. So you've already given them some credence by bringing them into your business. And fresh eyes is so valuable, because how many times do you do something that way? Because, well, we've always done it that way, So when it's something that somebody spots and they're coming in, we always say, yeah, talk us through, tell us how you think we should do it. And we've changed loads of things because of somebody coming in and looking at it from a different angle.
That's really a refreshing approach, because so often it's normal, I guess, for a business to, when someone's coming in, be like, don't question it, this is our way. But the fact you're actually leaning into it and saying, we're going to teach you, but whilst we're teaching you, I want you also to be reviewing our processes and give us feedback. That's such a rare thing to hear. But when you say it, it's so obvious.
It is obvious. And I mean, we've streamlined so many processes at Riverside. It was one of the first things I did when I joined the business, was review all of the processes, and we looked at how we could improve them. And I guess when you're a business, you have to reach critical mass before you can bring somebody like me in to actually start those kind of processes. And before that, you've got everybody just working away madly, doing their job, and they don't think about how they do it or why they do it, So one of the things that I have is a skills matrix. So I capture all the tasks in the business and all the people, and then I get them to score themselves as to how well they think they could do that job. Can they do it full competence with no supervision? They don't know anything about it, or somewhere in the middle. And where we've got gaps and the score comes out a little bit on the low side, that my training program then falls out of that. So that's where we start sharing knowledge, and where we're thinking, okay, you're in that job now, but in 6 months' time, I think I'd like to start moving you over there and giving you a little bit more to do. And it's when we start that cross-training that, even though somebody's already worked in the business, with that cross-training, they'll start questioning and saying, why do you do it that way? Why don't you do this instead? So we try and keep that fresh if we can. Even if we're not bringing somebody new in, we try and keep that fresh approach if we can, by always questioning things.
Yeah. Yeah, really good. And the business will only prosper because of it. So from your point of view as a manager, Helen, and I know you're passionate about helping others and developing others, we've talked a lot about trust and teamwork. for a manager who may be looking at their team and going, I don't quite get that sort of team bond that Helen's talking about, what would be some advice or things for that individual to consider that they could implement into their team to try and, start that journey of working, closer together?
I think the first thing I would do is, I think there's a work and a play element to this, Ryan, to be honest. The work element is look and see, have a conversation with that person and find out where do they want to go in their career? And do you think that that aligns to their skills and their experience and the qualities that they've got? And you've got to put some personal development in to people. It's a really important thing for the business and for the individual. So I do quarterly one-to-ones with my team, and I'm very fortunate. They have all their task-based objectives. I mentioned before we're part of Open Work, and Open Work have got a fantastic business school and a really good learning and development platform. So as well as setting the task-based objectives, and some of those might be project-based, they might come up once a year, it might be a one-off project, but I always try and include some personal development for somebody as one of their quarterly objectives. Now, the Open Work learning platform has got so much information on there. It really is incredible. And it could be somebody that's 18 and they're getting their first job and they want to know about working from home, how to work effectively from home, or how do I write in a business style? It's all there. It could be an advisor that wants to do an inheritance tax planning workshop. We can organise that, not a problem. It could be about learning how to train somebody. Open Work have got some videos that will give you some tips for peer-to-peer training if you're training somebody new that's coming in. It's all there, but all of these things build the skill set of the individual, they build their confidence, and they take them forward. So I think you've got to always commit to your team. You've got to develop them, and you have to stick to it. Now, something else that Riverside do, and I don't know if we're unique in this, but it's certainly where I've seen it most strongly. We commit to each and every one of our team that we will support them through their Chartered Insurance Institute diploma in regulated financial planning. And again, we use Open Work and their business school for that. They do some amazing workshops to take everybody right the way through from R01 to R06. And we expect people to study in their own time, but we give them the time off for the workshops and we pay for the material and for their exams. And there's a lot of support from other people in the office. We've got paraplanners, we've got advisors. Everybody's going through that journey at some point. So if somebody is struggling with one particular aspect of a particular exam, there's a whole load of people in the office that can help them. People like to study in different ways. Some people just like to get the book, sit down and do it on their own. Some people like to join the workshops. There's frequent discussion in the office of, I'm doing this. I know I get how this gets applied because I've seen it on that case. And that's really important. So I think that's the work aspect. But then you've got the play aspect. And we're a very sociable bunch at Riverside. So, we regularly go out for a drink after work. We have a sort of a summer weekend together, which is just the best fun you can possibly imagine. And then we have obviously got our Christmas party as well. But we do build that work hard, play hard ethos, and that's how you build a team, is picking the right people. I cannot stress how much fit matters. It's that intangible thing. It's that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And it's really, sometimes really hard to find. But I would say that if you're recruiting and you don't think you've got the fit right, don't take somebody just to put a bum on a seat. Don't do it. Because if you get it wrong, all that harmony that you've worked so hard to build amongst your existing team, it can be blown up in an instant. It's waiting for that right person. And they are out there. They are out there. You just need to be patient and wait for that right fit.
Yeah, definitely. Your loyalty lies with your current team, particularly those who've been in the business for many, many years. Your loyalty with them is paramount, and anyone coming in, like you said earlier, should be complementing it, not contradicting it or fighting against it. And that's where it's about understanding the business and also involving the team, I guess, is quite nice, because when that person does get the job offer and joins, on day one, they already know you and someone else in the team.
And I think that's really important. And what we do if we're interviewing, for example, for an advisor or somebody more senior, the final interview is like a half day. And so it's like a second interview with myself and Peter. And then we actually put a timetable together for them to go and meet everybody in the team and to just get a little overview of what they do so that they do know people on their first date. It's not scary. They don't come in and think, oh my God, I don't know what the office looks like. I've been in a little room and I've been interviewed by 2 people and I don't actually know what the office looks like and I don't know anybody and I don't know if they're nice or they're cold or they're friendly or they're warm. They're kind of embraced into the team before they start, and of course we do ask the guy's opinion. When we do that, we say to the guys, what do you think? What did you like about them? What did you think wasn't so great? Because they're going to be part of a successful and happy team. We don't want to bring somebody in that's going to upset the apple cart.
Most definitely. Look, this has been really, really insightful. One last question for you, Helen, and I like to sort of ask this on the podcast, is what's one of the best pieces of advice you've received?
I would say, and it's a piece of advice that I would always give to somebody else too, is be authentic with your team. If you don't like something that's happening, acknowledge it. If you can see it's upsetting them, acknowledge it and just say, look, I know this isn't great, but this is where we are. Legislation's a great example of that, hey? But you have to be honest with them. And I'm a firm believer that you have to give the best of yourself to your team. Because if you don't, I can't ask them to give the best of themselves to me. So roll up your sleeves, get stuck in. And if there's something to be sorted out, get stuck in with them. You cannot expect them to give what you're not prepared to give yourself. So always give the best of yourself, and then you can ask for it back.
Yeah, definitely. I've always sort of, considered the approach of you want people who are better than you in your team to do certain roles, but also as a manager, you need to be sharp enough yourself that you could challenge any of them and say, well, let me do it. And they go, oh, okay, hang on a minute. And you sort of, can call their bluff, or you can actually show, look, I'm willing to do it myself, whether it's an admin piece, whether it's calling up a client, having a difficult conversation, or, if they're sort of saying, oh, no one's picking up the phone to me, particularly in recruitment, okay, give me your list. I'll give them a go myself. And it's just sort of, having that approach, but you're not doing it to threaten them, or you're not doing it to, um, belittle them at all. It's just showing that, look, I'm here with you. We will go through it together. And that maybe when I do the task myself, I'll learn something and go, oh, hang on a minute, I can see why you've been struggling.
It's about being part of the team, Ryan, and that's it. We have obviously we have different roles, but we have a very flat structure in terms of questioning things and asking people why we do things certain ways. There's no question is out of bounds, because at the end of the day, we're all striving for the same thing, which is a successful business with happy clients.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Helen, thank you so much for your contributions today and providing such valuable insight. I know this will resonate so well with so many people across the industry. And like I said at the start of this, whether that's a current manager, an aspiring manager, or actually even for some team members to know what the process a manager goes through when trying to, build that team environment. Thank you to you guys at home for listening to this episode. Our aim is to produce as much valuable content as possible, and so we look forward for you joining us on the next episode of Talk FS.